So why a short film, I suppose, is the million-dollar question.
Because that's the script that I wanted to do. There's features now. That's the next progression.
Yeah, I suppose that's what I was going to ask as well. Were you doing this with that in mind, that you have something?
Yes, and because I kind of don't understand a little bit when, like, how if you did a 10-minute one that was just kind of impressions, it would be harder to get funding and to be trusted to make a movie. And obviously, you know, you have, as if you're an actor or an actress, you have a lot more suspicion about you, of your ability to do it, which I think is, you know, I for whatever reason, silly. But it's
we are in a great time though for female filmmakers.
Thank God, it's about time. You know, for me, like, my biggest inspiration in terms of just being punk and going out there and doing it is Ida Lupino. You know,
one of my favorites.
An amazing actress, but an amazing director, and it started in the 50s. I think it's 56 or 57.
What's your favorite Lupino film? You had to pick one.
I can't, because I don't love a lot of them. They're not like my favorite things, but I love that she directed them, and she did a great job as a director. Sometimes she got stuck with B scripts a lot of the time, so you can't say for that. But I can say for her spirit, I can say, like, she did it within the studio system and then after the studio system. I mean, she directed something like 50-something films. It was unbelievable. I think, like, especially with Dawn, if I had to pick influences, I would take the visuals and the color palette that I chose and the color timing. It's completely inspired by Haley Mills's Parent Trap in 1961. And I love that movie, and I think the colors in it, and they lend perfectly to this ideal Americana world, you know. But as far as stress and tension, Night of the Hunter, and the build of tension, that would be my tip of the hat to that.
Interesting, interesting. So, in terms of the tension, I suppose, that runs throughout, it starts off as this teen attraction, and I was really struck and interested by the fact that it's actually about two people getting on each other's the same wavelength of loneliness, rather than just horniness. You know?
Well, in a way, my direction to him, I said, you have to think of your character like a pedophile. Not in age, but in the fact that he's grooming her. He's mind-effing her, so to speak, with saying you're lonely. And she's like, I am? Like, she probably was and is, but never thought about it. She wouldn't know the word to put on that. She's so young in her mind, in a way, and so kept like this. It's more, I think the themes for me were more about kind of what society and societal expectations at that time, especially, you know, it's kind of really candy-coated world, and the kind of, if you have the misfortune of meeting somebody that is a sociopath to an extent, how you can miss all the signs if you're a woman or a girl by societal programming, by maternal programming, by just life's programming at the time. And how even now, someone bumps into me and I say sorry, oh, sorry, instead of the person apologizing to me, and it's just how we are programmed as women. And
unless you're English, we've been doing that forever.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe all women are English secretly.
Well, what about your reaction then when you first read it? I'm trying to think of a way to pose this so we don't give it away for viewers.
It's really tricky, I know.
But it must be so hard for you talking
Believe
about
me.
this.
Well, the description in the Sundance thing, I'm like, it's a little simplistic, but go.
So it gets pretty shocking there in the end. When you read it, and maybe the audiences who've watched it in America as well, was there an expectation that you think she's going to get raped and something much, much worse happens? Do you get that a lot when people talk to you afterwards?
I had a woman who said, I really wanted to throw up after seeing it, and I said, thank you, but it was because she was so stressed. And I think it's about, yes, that expectation. I wanted to not see that much violence on screen. I wanted it to be more like you just hear something. So I wanted it to be more about the audience putting in their mind what's going on and their buildup of horror in their own mind, instead of being, supplying them the horror on the screen. Because that's a lot more scary usually, what your mind can come up with. And I think that would be a more traditional way to go with it for a woman, for what's going to happen. And I didn't want that. I just wanted, there's a story in America recently. Well, one, this was like loosely based on this 50s serial killer, Charles Darkweather. The kind of looks and his attitudes and how he seduced a young woman and what she ultimately started, doing with him. And then again, this kind of like perfect idea of like this Kennedy era America. And then when it goes south, so to speak, the Charlie Starkweather character in real life, the person said, I just wanted to see what it was like. And I think that's what I wanted to explore, was kind of like sociopathy, which I've always been quite interested in, frankly. And the script is really strong, and I'm very grateful. I was originally meant to do a Flannery O'Connor short, and I lost the rights. So this has a good man, it's hard to find. Piper Laurie was going to be in it. Mm-hmm. But she's amazing, an amazing woman, and I think it turned out for the best, and what an actress. But this turned out for the best. I love the actors I got in this. I really very expressly wanted nobody who would ever be cast on the CW, like one of those kind of shows. Yeah. And it's hard to find a young actor like that in Los Angeles. I wanted a man that looked like he would grow up into being a man, a boy man, but not like just always boyish. And I wanted somebody that looked like they'd had a job. And somebody, back in the day, you could shake a tree and Gary Cooper would fall out. Not so anymore. So I wanted somebody who had this kind of, he had to be sweet enough for her to fall for him, and then a masculinity enough for you to believe the subversion in the end.
Well, finally, I wanted to ask you when you got the filmmaking bug, as an actress and now moving behind the camera, and I think about some of the sets you've been on and people like Greg Araki and Robert Rodriguez, who are real kind of run it and gun it people. You must have been pretty inspired by their spirit.
Not really.
Filmmakers. Not
no,
really.
I'm always inspired by anybody who gets anything done. It's unbelievable when somebody gets money to do it, when somebody gets it made and goes out and does it. That's awesome. I'm much more inspired, like for me, I've studied film since I was about 4. Pre-1963 is my specialty. I hosted a show on TCM for a year. This is what I studied. I'm inspired more like by Preston Sturges or by, Frank Capra or Charles Laughton, who sadly only did the one movie because it wasn't received well. It failed, and he was heartbroken. There's so many, people like that I was inspired by. David Lean. Like, for me, modern directors I'm heavily inspired by because I think they're the closest we have to Billy Wilder in terms of doing all sorts of different genres. Would be the Coen brothers, and for me, those are the kind of directors that inspire me in terms of going into other worlds, other rooms, other voices. But anybody who's punk enough to get something done has my respect.
Well, we hope that audiences at Sundance UK, you get a similar reaction, and maybe some other people will want to throw up. So
I hope so.
I will keep
Let me know.
an ear out as well as an eye.